CJ Lehigh here with the thrilling conclusion to All the Marbles. When last we left our hero, he's finally persuaded his new young friend, a girl who appears to be an orphan and who is in trouble on the run from Confederate soldiers, to help him try and find his marble in the hope that this magic marble will allow them to finally escape and get back to the 21st century. So we'll see what happens from here. "It looks like this," I said, pulling a glassy from my pocket. "Only older, and it's a little chipped. I dropped it when you ran into me." We searched every inch of that ground. It seemed like it took an hour, but we didn't find anything. The marble was gone, and I was stuck in 1864. "It's got to be here," I said. I had it. "Hey, you two, hold it right there!" It was the first man, standing at the top of the hill, his rifle out and pointed at us. 50 yards away, at most. I didn't know anything about how accurate Confederate rifles were, but that seemed so close that he could reach out and touch us, so I put my hands up and stood still. The girl, though, shrieked and ran down the hill away from him. He swore and charged after her. On his way past me, he hit me in the gut with the butt of his rifle, and I went down as the breath whistled out of me. I felt like my chest was crushed in. I writhed in the dirt and tried not to throw up, rolling from side to side. I couldn't make my lungs work. I gasped for air like a landed fish. And there was the marble, right next to my face. I almost didn't see it. I was heaving so hard, but the sun must have hit it just right. I grabbed it and turned it in my hand, searching for the rough places. There. I pressed my fingers to them, and the hill and the dirt and the glassy rise with the pillar of smoke just beyond it all disappeared. I was lying on the blacktop at the school again. But just as I disappeared, or reappeared, I guess, I heard the girl scream. She was caught. The relief of being back on my own time and place was so wonderful I almost passed out there on the playground. I probably would have, except for the pit of guilt in my gut. I couldn't leave her there. I didn't know if there was any way to get her back with me. I had no idea what the marble could do, but there are some things a guy just knows he has to try, or else he'll be ashamed all his life. So before I could think my way out of it, I took my fingers off the marble, and the green valley reappeared with me lying in the dirt again. The girl was still screaming, being dragged back up the hill by the cavalrymen. I didn't know what my time traveling had looked like, or maybe I disappeared or something, but the Reb had his back to me and didn't seem to have seen anything. It was pretty clear what he was going to do, though, when he got back up the hill to me. He was going to bash my head in, and then, well, I wasn't supposed to know what soldiers did to girls, but I did, and it was ugly. She was right to be screaming. He was much bigger than she was. She had no chance, though she didn't come without a fight. Finally, he dumped her next to me and hammered her in the stomach with his boot. She retched, but she was close enough to reach, so I put one hand on her and another on the marble and found the magic places again. The valley flashed away and I was back on the playground again. But she wasn't there. The marble hadn't brought her. I let go again, and there she was, a foot or so away, grimy-faced and gasping for air, while the cavalryman let out a whistle and yelled for his companion. Since we didn't seem to be going anywhere, he took a couple of steps back and leaned on his rifle, glancing up the hill. I held out the marble toward her. "You have to touch it," I whispered. Her eyes opened a fraction. She saw the marble, but it didn't register with her. "Touch it," I said. "Please." She reached out a hand and touched the side of the marble. I pinched it. Again, the playground appeared. She wasn't there. By now I was sick. What if only one of us could go? I let go of the marble and the whole horrible scene reappeared, but this time I heard the cavalryman say, "What the devil?" He had obviously seen me disappear. We wouldn't get another chance at this. "Touch the top," I said, and pointed frantically at the marble. She didn't react. She hadn't any more strength for anything. There was a crunch of a footstep as the cavalryman came closer to see what was up. Not knowing what else to do, I grabbed her finger and put it on the rough patch at the top of the marble, at the same time putting my thumb on the bottom patch. The playground reappeared, and she was lying on it with me. The rest of the story I'm sure you know, well, or most of it. It was all in the papers. When a fourth grader disappears off a playground during school, every policeman in the world shows up to try to find him, and they were all there looking for me when I showed back up. Naturally, I tried to explain where I had been and what had happened, and of course no one believed me, except for one thing: the girl. Here was this girl lying on the ground with me in an impossible dress with an impossible accent. She was terrified, but a little at a time she told her story, and what could anyone do? They searched everywhere for records of her and found nothing. No one was missing a 13-year-old girl in Spotsylvania or anywhere else in Virginia. Her story matched mine exactly. They prodded her and probed her, and then they threw up their hands. Eventually, they let her come and stay with my family, since she had nowhere else to go, and that's how my sister Erin and her red hair got into my family of blondes. She even learned to shoot marbles after a while. Speaking of marbles, everyone tried to get my marble to do something again, but it wouldn't. It was just a piece of chipped glass after that day. I guess it had a thing to do, and it did it, and then it was done. You know all this if you read any of the papers or watch any of the news programs, because Erin and I were on all of them for weeks. Then the press moved on to something else, and our lives went back to normal, or mine did, though Erin's probably wasn't. But my dad had a hunch and did some looking into some documents stored at the county archives, and one day he came home with a copy of an old newspaper, a very old one. It was from May 24, 1864, and it said, "The Battle of the Courthouse had many casualties, but these should never be forgotten. Sean and Maeve O'Brien and their daughter Erin, whose farm was raided by deserting Confederate cavalry the day before the battle began. The parents' bodies were returned for burial by Major Ashley Wilkes, who tragically was captured by a Yankee regiment in the ensuing battle. The daughter's body has never been found, and she is presumed a casualty of this never-ending war." You probably never heard that part because our family didn't talk about it much, but it made me feel better. And that is All the Marbles by C.J. Lehigh. I hope you've enjoyed our five-part installment, our five-installment story here. We'll make this kind of a regular thing. I've got a whole lot more of these kinds of stories, and if you like these, leave a comment for me, will you? Let me know, and tell your friends. I'm hopeful that over the course of the next few years, there'll be lots and lots of these stories available for everybody to take part in. And I hope they'll get better, because I'm still at the beginning of my career. I'm still learning how to do this. And some of these stories are good, and some of them, when I read them, I can see places where they might be made better. And I'm hopeful that I'll have the skill and the wit and the diligence to be able to make that happen. In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed this one, and we'll see you next time.